And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Josh Manning, Deputy Managing Editor for Assignment at the Western Journal. Joining me today, on my right, Olivia Brown. She is guesting on the podcast today. She is with Liftable TV. If you don't know about Liftable TV, Google it right now. Check it out. I assume the web address is liftabletv.com. I'm not positive.
Liftable.tv.
Liftable.tv.
And happy to be here.
Your source for fantastic, uplifting television entertainment. So thank you for joining us today. Olivia, on my left, Grant Atchison, just kidding, Grant Atkinson. Intern Grant. He will not be an intern much longer, and that doesn't mean we're firing him. We're actually going to bring him on to the team.
He will not be here much longer.
He won't be here much longer, folks. Thank you for tuning in this Hump Day, Wednesday afternoon. Halfway through the week, we've got three exciting topics we want to talk with you about. Interesting stuff going on out there. Grant's going to talk with us about the Cuomo investigation, Cuomo's attempt to defend against it, and how his attempt really has backfired and actually possibly made things worse for him. After that, we're going to be talking with Olivia about the latest AOC gaffe. We have excellent video of AOC breaking her own rules and the Democrats' rules and the media's rules. We've got video of that we're going to get to in just a minute. But first off, I want to talk with you about a story that's actually a couple days old. I only stumbled across it today, and it was so stunning to me that I wanted to share it with you guys. So I was looking around today, seeing what's happening out there. An interesting story caught my eye. Turns out Biden's DOJ has informed the rest of the states, all 50 states, including Arizona, that essentially if they attempt to engage in a Maricopa-style audit, an Arizona-style election audit, they may be in danger of breaking the law and, in fact, could be subjecting themselves to fines or actual imprisonment. Now, this really caught my eye, guys, because I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about accountability. I'm thinking about how badly we need accountability in government just in general. I'm thinking about the lack of confidence in American elections right now. And now Biden's DOJ has come out and said, listen, essentially what the directive said was if you're an election supervisor, you're an election official, you let somebody else get control of the voting apparatus or the voting records, that you could be looking at jail time. You could be looking at a fine. We've got some wording here. Forbes actually covered this quite well, and I want to throw that up there. Forbes says the DOJ's new guidance document explicitly warns against audits in which election officials are forced to turn over materials like ballots or voting machines to state lawmakers or third parties. Think about that for a second. To state lawmakers or third parties, as in Arizona, whose audit is being run by the private company Cyber Ninjas. The Forbes piece goes on to say, violating federal law by turning over election materials could be punishable through fines of up to $1,000 or a prison sentence of up to 1 year. So, guys, I looked at this and I thought, good Lord, what they're trying to do, what Biden's DOJ is trying to do is criminalize any attempt to get outside confirmation that the election was legitimate. Am I reading that wrong, Olivia?
No, that's exactly what it is. And in every investigation, what you do is you have an outside source come in and investigate it. And we need to have transparency in our elections. And so this is really important that we don't have, like Biden's DOJ, doing things like this. This is taking away from the accountability that we need in our elections. And the American people deserve fair elections, and this is just another step backwards.
I agree with that. It's unimaginable to me that you would say you don't want outsiders coming in. Grant, I can think of a circumstance or two where you wouldn't want outsiders coming in. What are those? What would that look like? If you're sitting there and you're saying, I really don't want outsiders looking at the work I just did, what would you make of that?
Well, I would say a circumstance where I wouldn't want outsiders coming in would probably be at the ballot box where people are voting, which is where we are seeing outsiders coming in a lot of times. I mean, we've seen people who are either voting in the wrong county. We've seen people whose votes have been just should have been discounted for one reason or another, and they're not being discounted. And these audits, the goal is not, we've said this in every piece that we've put out. We continually get fact checked every time we put out election stuff. We've been very clear that the goal of these audits is not to say Donald Trump won the election. The goal of these audits is to say we want to have transparency, as you said, Olivia. We want to have confidence in our elections. We want to be able to say we feel confident that the results that we see on Fox News or on CNN or whatever on election night are actually the results that happened, and that the people who are elected were fairly elected, and that we feel like our votes counted and that they were fair and that they're not being watered down by other votes. And we continually see Democrats come up with more reasons like this to try to discount these audits, which I don't understand. Everyone says this. I don't understand why it's a partisan issue. I really don't. Like, it shouldn't be. If you actually think that you won the election, the Democrats, why would you not want to show that it was done fairly, it was done correctly, and you won the election?
Well, that's what I'm wanting to get at, because I know, when my kids are up to something that's no good, they don't want me or their mom, my wife, in the room checking them out. They want to be off on their own. When I see a group of people that doesn't want other people around, and those people are charged with a great responsibility, it seems unbelievably suspicious to me. Olivia, am I just cynical and conspiratorial about this?
No. If you're cynical, then so am I. Because absolutely, when someone doesn't want you getting involved or doesn't want outsiders or state lawmakers to get involved, that means that something went wrong. There's no reason for them not to want that. Yeah. If we continue having transparency and fair elections, and if this election really was fair, as the Democrats are saying, then they should be open to audits. They should be open to everyone knowing what really happened.
That's what I don't understand. There were multiple recounts in Florida in the year 2000 afterward, and all of the recounts showed that Bush actually did come out ahead. Barely, but he did come out ahead.
And the Democrats loved them. They loved those recounts.
Oh, the recounts were
before they got the results.
Before they got the results, exactly. And so I don't understand. And they were the ones who wanted the recounts, man. They wanted them because Florida. If you remember, Florida was called for Bush, then it was uncalled, then it was called for Gore, then it was uncalled again. Then nobody knew what was happening. Then it was called for Bush. Then they wanted recounts. So this to me looks like a group of people that doesn't want oversight because they might have been doing something dirty. Now, Logan, can you put that first quote from that first quote we read back up on the screen? There's something I want to draw y'all's attention to. I did the first time we went through this. The DOJ's new guidance document explicitly warns against audits in which election officials are forced to turn over materials like ballots or voting machines to state lawmakers or third parties. Now, Grant, that is really interesting to me because the Constitution vests responsibility for elections with the state legislatures. Why in the world is the Biden DOJ saying the people the Constitution vests with the power to control elections, they're not allowed to examine the results of the elections?
Who do they want to examine? Like, they just want the federal government to examine them, I guess? Is that their goal? I don't understand.
Maybe UN election monitors. Maybe that's who they want.
If you don't want the state lawmakers to do it, who's going to do it?
This is a great point, by the way. I hadn't thought about that until just now. They sit there saying, hey, the only people who've got any standing to talk about this, to review this stuff, they're the bureaucrats who are, I guess, chosen by the state legislature, or at least by the state government. But these are the same guys who want UN election inspectors watching as well. What a weird double standard. I didn't think about that until just now.
And we don't need outside countries getting involved.
Also, the left had no problem before the election using state officials to unilaterally just overhaul election procedures.
Oh, great point.
And make it so that, mail-in voting was a lot more prevalent. There were a lot more ballot boxes. I mean, countless things that we've talked about many times that undermine our confidence in elections, and they should, because they are practices that make voter fraud much easier.
So,
and yet these people who have the power to do that, now, if you're on the other side and you're a Republican, you're not allowed to look at the results. It's like, do you want power with the states, or do you not want power?
Yeah, it's not bad enough that they wanted to do massive mail-in voting and all of that. On the other side of it, they say you can't even check the results. Okay, that's it for election audits and fraud and all of those things. Grant, you've got a piece on Cuomo. That is the news of the day, continuing from yesterday, burning up all the oxygen in the room. Now, Cuomo has come out. He has issued his response. He's trying to save himself, and it sounds like it completely backfired.
Yeah, so obviously this Andrew Cuomo story has been going on for months now. This investigation started back in February with the Attorney General in New York, Letitia James, officially opening that investigation into him about sexual harassment allegations from multiple staffers, multiple people that he had been interacting with. He denied it at the time. He said, I welcome an investigation, and I am confident that it will find there was no wrongdoing. Well, we did the investigation, and that's not what it found. It found that there was lots of wrongdoing. Letitia James came out yesterday and said that it's confirmed that he engaged, or at least their investigation, in their opinion, it confirmed that he engaged in sexual harassment with at least 11 women who came forward and spoke to them.
Wow.
And so she made it pretty clear that the evidence is damning and that she feels he definitely is guilty of these offenses. And instead of apologizing in any way, he continued to be defensive. He came out and made a video, which we'll show in a second. But the first thing I want to show is in the appendix of this report that was released by Letitia James, there is an email that was drafted by Chris Cuomo, the CNN anchor brother of Andrew Cuomo, and it appears that he was trying, it's on February 28th was the exact day that Letitia James opened the investigation, and it appears that Chris Cuomo is drafting a statement for his brother to try to get him out of these allegations, or at least to try to get some heat off of him as this investigation opens. And
Chris Cuomo, CNN host.
The guy who's an objective journalist.
Objective.
We know that's not
so
true,
objective.
The guy who feels that he should be considered.
Was he the viewpopoint journalist? No, that was Don Lemon. I have a viewpoint.
Yeah.
I'm not biased. I have a viewpoint. Yeah. But Cuomo, he's supposed to be a newsman, hardcore newsman.
So he continues to further the lie that he is an objective news journalist, and yet here he is helping his brother, actively drafting a statement to try to get him out of sexual harassment allegations. And he had to show yesterday, Chris Cuomo still has his nightly show on CNN, and he failed to mention the investigation at all. Not a single time did he mention the investigation. And this comes after last year he had Andrew Cuomo, his brother, on. They had giant Q-tip props, if you remember, talking about how Andrew Cuomo got tested and he has a huge nose, and it was
so it could love on him. He could give him good publicity, but anything bad, we dare not mention.
Yeah, we're not allowed to mention
even just to say, hey, folks, we recognize this is happening. I want to just tell you, I am his brother. Most of you know that. I can't cover it. CNN is going to cover it and do a great job. He couldn't even do that.
No. And also, Don Lemon had Chris Cuomo on his show, which I believe comes on after Chris Cuomo's show, talked to Chris Cuomo not about Andrew Cuomo at all. And then as soon as Chris Cuomo goes off the show, then 5 seconds later, he starts talking about Andrew Cuomo. So it's like, we're going to cover it,
ridiculous.
but we're just going to completely shield Chris Cuomo from it, who is obviously implicated it. He's been drafting these statements. He's obviously a part of it, and we're just going to completely shield it. CNN has not said anything about it. So my question to you guys is, what is it going to take for CNN to hold one of their journalists accountable? I mean, this seems like a clear ethics violation, and they're just completely silent on it.
Well, I don't know. You seem to be able to do almost anything at CNN and get away with. I mean, look, you seem to be able to do almost anything in any cable news except Fox. Fox is the exception,
right?
But you can be tubing, do that thing. You still ultimately,
he still came back.
Yeah, you get to come back.
I don't know how you come back from that.
Yeah, exactly. The only place where they don't come back is Fox. There was a character assassination hit job on Roger Ailes. He never came back. Judge Knapp, he's been let go. I think it took 24 hours for him to be let go, and that was just for stroking. Was it an intern stroking an intern's arm in the elevator or something?
Right, which we see Biden and Cuomo do on the daily. So I don't understand.
And I stroke your arm in the elevator all the time too. Fast times at WJ. But Fox is the only place where there seem to be any consequences for this kind of behavior. I don't know if there is anything that will wake CNN up. What do you think?
No, I don't think so either. I mean, it's very unfortunate, but I have no faith in CNN at this point, and I don't think things are going to change from what they used to be. CNN used to be a reputable source that has since changed. I was a journalism major myself. This is journalism 101, that you don't get involved in personal family things. You don't report on that. You don't talk about that. You definitely don't draft up apology letters for your brother, and also a state lawmaker. Just taking it away from being his brother, he was appointed by the people of New York. That is a major violation.
Imagine if Tucker Carlson had drafted a response to the Stormy Daniels stuff that Trump could have gone out and read on the air. Can you imagine what the fits that would have seized liberals, leftist Democrats, and cable news everywhere?
Yep.
And I haven't heard a peep about this.
Right. I mean, the only place that you've heard about it is on the Twitter of people like Turning Point. I saw it on the Blaze. These conservative outlets
and
like
us.
ourselves.
Us.
And us.
Definitely
too.
us.
Sure you want that job? Maybe you want to go intern for somebody else for a little while.
I originally saw it on Turning Point's Twitter, which is what made me think of that. But the point is
the conservative Twitter sphere, the conservative new media is the only place it's showing up.
They're the only place that you're seeing it. And if you're not following them, you probably wouldn't know about this story, which is incredible to me. Like you said, if this happened on the other side, and I know people will come after us and say you're doing whataboutism, whatever. Like, no, we're not. Like, if this exact same situation happened on the other side, it would be a completely different story. And that's just straight up hypocrisy. There's no other way to look at it to me.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I don't know what would fix this. But anyway, you have video.
I do. So moving on from Chris Cuomo and just talking about Andrew Cuomo, obviously we mentioned his sexual harassment allegations. He released a video yesterday in which he was trying to, I guess, prove that he is not creepy, but he didn't do a very good job. And we'll have it right here. We'll show it for you.
Indeed, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of me using the exact same gesture. I do it with everyone, black and white, young and old, straight and LGBTQ, powerful people, friends, strangers, people who I meet on the street.
I think he was scratching that last guy under the chin. It looked like he was a puppy kind of doing this thing.
Well, it's people he meets on the street.
People you meet on the street.
People he meets on the street, he just scratches their chin and rubs their back. It's great. It's not sexual harassment. He does it with everyone.
So meanwhile, in academia,
I'd be so uncomfortable by that.
Can you imagine if some guy walked up to you and grabbed your head like that? But meanwhile, in academe, where everything is woke as can be, if a guy looks at you the wrong way, oh my gosh, he visually raped you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's like. But this guy can go out and do this stuff. And then you have stories from the women who have come forward. And it's just very uncomfortable. I was watching one of them today. Gosh, I can't remember her name, but she was saying, look, he propositioned me for sex.
Yeah,
that's if I remember correctly.
There are multiple women who have pretty much said those words.
He was asking her about stuff with her. He was talking about how he was lonely. I think he brought up his sex life. I think he asked her about hers. I mean, this is just not.
That's not what this apology is for. So he's basically
No.
sidestepping the entire issue.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not even an apology. To be nowhere
it's not.
in that video does he apologize. Later in the video, he says, "I understand that my actions have made some people uncomfortable, and so I apologize that they felt uncomfortable." That's like something you would do if you're like a 6-year-old and you're like trying to apologize to like your brother who you
That's
did
called
something
gaslighting.
to. You're like, "Yeah, I'm sorry that you got mad about what I did, but I'm not sorry for what I actually did."
Well, and Olivia, who is the other person who is notorious for touching and hugging and sniffing
Biden.
and neck nuzzling? Biden. Biden.
None other than the president.
Our
None other
number
than the
one
president.
head sniffer.
The number one head sniffer, who has called for Cuomo to resign. Yet Biden himself continues to hang out in the White House. With,
Maybe he should resign
with
too.
them. Maybe he should.
Yeah, I do find that
it would
interesting. I think
surely be nice.
I think the reason that he ended up calling on him to resign is because back in March he said, if this investigation
Yeah, he had
finds
to. He was
that
stuck.
Cuomo is
He was
guilty,
stuck.
then I'll call him and
So it's going to be liberal.
Resign.
It's going to be liberal hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So he dodged that bullet, but we've got more liberal hypocrisy in the person of AOC.
Yep.
Tell us about it, Olivia.
So the story that we're looking at today is AOC. Recently, this video caught her not wearing a mask. She's with a group, and she puts on her mask only for the photo and then takes it off. Let's take a look.
Let's take a quick photo so we can keep the pressure up so other colleagues can come out here, yeah? Great.
This your New York crew?
No, this is everybody, all right?
Boy, they're really socially distanced there, aren't they?
Yep.
No, you're fine.
Look how happy they are.
But you can't see their smiles.
1, 2, 3.
Everybody say whiskey.
Say dirty hypocrite on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Are they clapping for themselves? Like I don't.
She's a fraud.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a
AOC
disgrace.
AOC is the queen of performative activism. And this is just another show of her virtue signaling. So my question for you is, are masks more of a statement than actually a necessity that we're seeing now?
To me, masks have been a statement for a long, long time. Maybe at the beginning it was a combination of them being a statement and some people thinking they were a necessity. At this point, I think the evidence is pretty clear that areas that have mask mandates are not experiencing vastly different COVID numbers than areas without mask mandates, especially among people who are fully vaccinated, as AOC I'm sure is, because all the
Yeah.
Democrats are. So I'm sure she's fully vaccinated, and there is really no scientific evidence to prove that her wearing a mask is going to make it safer for her to walk around or be around other people than if she weren't wearing a mask. But it's for a while now, it's been about virtue signaling. When the mask mandates were first kind of pulled back, the CDC said you don't need to wear a mask if you're vaccinated anymore. We saw people on Twitter saying, I'm going to keep wearing a mask just because I want people to know that I care and I actually am not a COVID denier, so I'm going to keep wearing a mask, literally to virtue signal. And I think that is the main reason that masks continue to be around today.
You talk about the difference between masked populations and unmasked populations. I really wish I had given production folks this graphic ahead of time. But if you graph out Sweden's case numbers and death numbers, and you overlay them with ours, Sweden never locked down. They never instituted a mask mandate. They have some mild restrictions now starting in July, but they never locked down. Almost every step of the way, they beat us as far as cases and deaths go. And they are less vaccinated than we are too.
Wow.
We have more proportionally more fully vaccinated people than they do. And so the comparison just could not be clearer to me. This is a population that never masked up, and they're perfectly fine. Now, as a friend of mine on Facebook pointed out, well, they're much healthier. Well, that's probably true. Also, good incentive to get healthy if you live in the United States.
Very true.
If you're engaging in a lifestyle that makes it more likely for you to die if you contract a fairly contagious disease, maybe stop doing that.
Yeah, get some help. And so this brings me to just recently, the CDC is starting to roll back on the guidelines that they had said. And now places in California and Las Vegas and Nevada are starting to mandate masks again. So all the different places that were mask free now have masks again. So they're saying it's because of the Delta variant, but what makes this any different than previously? And also, is this a move in the right direction? And also, just me thinking about it is people have had freedom to not wear masks. And personally, for me, I've really enjoyed it. I'm sure others have as well. Are people going to start complying after they have had this type of freedom?
I don't want anyone to come after me after seeing this podcast. I don't want to get attacked, but I will make a pledge on this podcast that unless I am forced to wear a mask to go on a plane, to go see my family or something, I will not be doing. I will not be wearing it in the grocery store. I'm not going to just comply blindly like we did last time. At least I did. I don't know whether you guys did. I assume for at least a while you guys wore masks. I went along with it. I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Hopefully it'll be over soon. And I believed that it would be over in a reasonable amount of time, and it wasn't. And I've seen articles from Rochelle Walensky of the CDC the other day saying, oh, well, if we just mask up for 2 weeks, then the Delta variant will be under control.
2 weeks to
like,
stop
I
the
don't,
spread.
like,
no.
how is it possible that we're not seeing what's happening here? Like,
Again.
they're literally doing the exact same thing that they did a year and a half ago, and people are still falling for it. It's
You used the
incredible
word
to me.
gaslighting earlier.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's what it looks like to me. You asked an interesting question just a second ago, Olivia. You said, what makes it different this time? And I am very glad you asked that. I didn't set this up ahead of time, but I was looking at some fresh COVID numbers just before I came on the show, and I put a bunch of stuff together. So I went back and I looked at the first COVID spikes from last year when things really started ramping up. The first big spike was in April. The next big spike was in July. You had cases, and then after that, you go to November. That's when the next really big one is. The jump from July to November, that spike was about 164%. So 164% more people were getting COVID on a daily basis.
This is 2020.
This is 2020, and that's from July to November. In that same time frame, deaths went up 152%. So that means they were tracking pretty much the same. You get 2 or 3% more people with COVID, you get 2 or 3% more deaths. Makes sense. Here's what's interesting. I went back and looked at what has happened since Delta showed up, really started showing up. Cases have gone up 650%.
Whoa.
Since Delta showed up. This big increase.
Yeah.
But fatalities, deaths have only gone up 82%.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's way, 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 way fewer than we would expect based on what we saw in the past. The increase in cases and the increase in deaths, the changes in cases, changes in deaths tended to reflect each other. They do not now. And one of the comments early on was that, look, Delta is more contagious. Yeah, it's a lot easier to get. It's maybe not nearly as lethal. And I think we're seeing the numbers bear that out. Now, it tends to be the case that it takes about a month for a spike in cases to show a spike in deaths. So cases are just now starting, but they started going up over a month ago, and we're doing okay right now. So fingers crossed, hopefully this is going to be okay. Now, I had hoped it was going to be okay in March of last year too, and I was wrong.
Well, we got to know God's always in control.
He is
Myself,
in control.
As a Christian, I just got to remember that.
You're exactly right. He is ultimately in control. He is good. He is good always. And there's a lot of comfort we can take in that. All right, folks, that's it for us. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Thanks for spending part of your Wednesday afternoon with us. We are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. If you're watching us online on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button. After you click that, click on the little bell. That's going to make sure you get notified when we go live. Thank you so much for spending time over at westernjournal.com. We appreciate you. You help us to perform a service that we think is very important. If you feel led to help us in a really direct manner, you can go to westernjournal.com/join. That's westernjournal.com/join. And there are multiple ways you can partner with us there to fund the journalism that we are doing that is honest, that is truthful, that is straightforward. We are the biggest Christian conservative news organization really in the world. We're the only ones doing this. We think it's important. It's not cheap to do. We don't have any billionaires backing us. We're a family-owned business. If you feel like jumping in to support us, help fight the fight, we would appreciate it. For Olivia, for Grant, for all the folks in the booth, I'm Josh Manning. We're going to see you again Friday. Thanks. Have a great night.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you are joining us. Thank you so much for doing so. I actually want to say aloha, but, you know, as you can all see, we are dressed themed for our beloved editor-in-chief, George Upper. It's his birthday today, so we're just going to throw that out.
I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and we have more bounce in Arizona than all y'all combined.
More bounce?
I'm just going to give you a minute to think about that. Deputy Managing Editor Josh Manning is here with me with his hat.
And on my right is Brett, whose last name I now can't remember.
Kershaw.
That's it. I knew it. I knew it. Like the knife brand.
A little
like
suspense.
The only man who knows Brian Chai's title is Brian Chai, and it is
The Grand Pooh Bear.
Grand Pooh. That's
Grand
fine.
Poobah.
He's director of something.
No, Grand Pooh Bear.
Oh my gosh! Oh no! Oh no! I love this number right at the end.
step at the end.
That's show he's okay.
And if you're thinking that this shirt makes me look like a hippopotamus on camera, I'm right there with you. Reminding you as always, if you like watching hippopotamus